This is Wendy Eklund. I'm here with Laurel Ward and Paige McKinney. We're all longtime homeschool moms, and we're here to answer your questions. We've included a Zoom link that you can join us in Zoom if you want to help us know what things you want to know. And until people arrive, we will share our own personal homeschool story. So who wants to start while I try and get it on one more page live?
Go ahead, Paige.
Thanks, Laurel.
Step back.
Okay, so I did not plan to be a homeschooler. I had a very active 5-year-old, and I was in an extended breastfeeding play group, and some of the moms were homeschooling with a local charter, which was Eagles Peak at the time. It's morphed, it's changed names. I think some iteration of it is still around, Mountain Peak maybe. And so we tried that because I thought I really need a teacher and I really need some help. And I kind of quickly realized through the process that I didn't need that teacher and I didn't really need all of that help. And we just wanted to enjoy our life and kind of was building my relationship with myself as a homeschool mom, as an kind of getting to know that I was confident and able to. And so a couple years later, we had kind of an uncomfortable breakup, you could say, with the teacher. I had to have my friend as a sort of intervention. The teacher was very upset. It wasn't working very well. She had marked us truant while we were at Hawaii Volcanoes Park because it was a mandatory attendance day. Boy, this is turning out to be a bad story for a charter, but
I love this story.
It was a mandatory attendance day. It was early 2000. Internet capability wasn't up. And so we had offered to fax in, like from the hotel in Hawaii, this attendance form, and it wasn't good enough. And our kindergartner was marked truant, which seemed absolutely insane. So we tried to work through some issues. And in the end, I had the confidence to know it's time to step outside of this structure, and we started filing a PSA, which is the private school affidavit, which is the private option, one of a couple private options for homeschooling in California. And we just kept learning and growing, and our school, we titled it the Garden of Knowledge, and so I met Laurel through some of our park days, and we had these co-op groups. One was Rainbow Kids. I don't know if you remember, Laurel. Mm-hmm. And we would do like fun little days, like International Day, and all the kids would bring their posters of their country that they explored. We would participate in the Youth Expo, which I think is called Imaginology now. Mm-hmm. We just had all kinds of fun. We had book clubs for kids who weren't reading, which maybe sounds a little counterintuitive, but it was all about encouraging that love of reading with your kids. And we came back to a charter later as I was transitioning through some things in my life. And I homeschooled at the very end my grown teenagers through to a diploma through what was then Inspire Charter Schools. And there were some challenges with that, but overall, the charter world had changed so much in the 10 years I was filing a PSA that I ended up having a wonderful experience. We had a fantastic teacher who was a member of our community. And now I'm on the other side of that with 2 grown homeschoolers who got their diplomas through Inspire, and one, I should say unschooler, because we're very unschooly. Although that means different things for different people, so don't be scared of the label. You can define it for yourself. Mm-hmm. And my youngest has, we've moved, and my youngest has decided he wanted to try a little private school. So now he's attending a democratic free school. Nice. And I'm getting a whole new educational experience.
That's great.
That's awesome. Laurel, do you want to go?
Sure. I have 3 kids, and we came into homeschooling through the natural childbirth, La Leche League, and then attachment parenting, and then, our kids, original set of kids, it was time to go to school, and I felt really strongly we were going to homeschool the whole time. It's sort of a continuation of the out of the box mentality that we'd already been living, of this joyful, nurturing life. And I just couldn't imagine taking my beautiful 5-year-old and saying, okay, now your childhood is over. It's time to go sit behind a desk for some certain amount of hours in the day. And we went to California Homeschool Network, is a statewide grassroots organization, all volunteer run, inclusive. And we went to one of their annual events, and I looked around and I said, this is it. These are my people. This is what I want to do. And she was, I think, 3 when we first did that. And the grandparents came with us to that event, and we have gone to every one that happened. She would have graduated there this year, but it got canceled due to the pandemic. And we have 2 more kids now, and we have tried all kinds of homeschooling. We have been independent for many years. We did the Community Home Education Program, which is the County Board of Education independent study program, and that worked well for a little while. We did charter, and we're still with the charter. We've never done a PSP, but I know people who have done that really well. And I think the most important thing is it's not about the method you use to legally check the box of education. It's about starting from your own center and saying, we want to live together, we want to be happy, we want to nurture each other, we want to learn, we want to provide learning opportunities, and create the lifestyle. And because you can't keep from learning, so I certainly appreciate unschooling. We would tend to maybe go more eclectic than flat out unschooling, but it's all in how you do it. Sometimes there's curriculums, sometimes there are classes, sometimes there are co-ops, sometimes there are book clubs, which you so graciously put together, and we have wonderful memories. And you just create it every day, all the time. You change, your children change, you move, but it starts from the center of living a learning lifestyle.
Yeah, exactly. That's beautiful, Laurel.
That was beautiful, Laurel. Thank you.
She always has the right words. So I guess we would say that I never thought I would be a homeschool mom. I have 3 children, and my oldest, he's now going to be 17 on August 8th. Crazy to me, but I know. Can you guys believe it?
No.
I thought, like, I grew up with a very traditional education path. I went to private Christian school, and then I went to Troy High School in Fullerton. And so I just thought, oh, I'll put my child in school and things will be just fine. And I had actually spaced my kids out because I hate being pregnant. I'm terrible at it. But so Athen was turning 5, right when Hudson was born. And so, Athen's going to go to school. Well, Athen was super shy and had very delayed speech. He did not start talking until he was over 4 years old. So, and he's very attached to me. My husband traveled a lot when Athen was little. So he was very, very attached to me. He was like, don't let mom out of my sight because I don't know when she might come back, because dad would be gone for a week at a time and then come back for a day and then be gone again. And so when we started trying to do school, he had major anxiety about being dropped off. And so it ended up that I was in the classroom with him every single day, wearing Hudson in a baby carrier. And by the end of kindergarten, he had a stomach ulcer. And the pediatrician was like, you have to find another option for him. This is not going to work. So that's how we found homeschooling. And when I pulled him out of school, it was just after school had started. And so I was so not knowing anything about enrollment or how to homeschool privately. I had a lot of friends that were homeschooling, but all through charter school. So I applied to a charter school. It said, oh no, we're on a wait list, we're full. So then I applied to another charter school, same thing. And then another charter school, same thing. So I applied to 3 charter schools, they were all full. So then I was panicked, oh my gosh, Child Protective Services is gonna show up on my door because he's not enrolled in school, and which is totally not a thing. They were not gonna show up on your door for that. But at that moment, I thought that that was gonna happen. And so we also had tried Parkview, which is an independent study program through our school district, and that didn't work for him. So finally, I got calls from all 3 schools within like 20 minutes of each other. And I thought, oh, all of these teachers are calling me. I want to see which teacher I have the best connection with. And so I talked to all 3 of them. They asked me questions about Athens. And I didn't get such a good feeling from 2 of them. And one of them I really, really felt a connection with. And she wasn't available to come meet me in person for a couple of days. But then when she did to come sign the paperwork, I thought is what she was coming for. She came and she had a huge box of all of these things that she thought was going to work for Athens based on our conversation. And so, of course, I fell in love with her, and that is who we signed up with. And we were with her for 6 years. And I adored her. And so all 3 of my children have been homeschooling through the charter school system, except for I did pull Athens mid-year last year because he's in high school now, and he's not a normal learner. He's very outside the box, and so he doesn't do anything, worksheets and things like that. We have to create all of his learning just like everyone else does when they're homeschooling. So it got a little difficult to create those work samples that they were wanting. So I filed a PSA for the first time in 11 years. This in November, I think I filed. So yeah, so you do change from one method to another when you need to. I think that's been everyone's experience. Let's see if anyone has any questions. So not yet, but I think some of the questions I've been getting as I field phone calls are people are concerned that they can't get into a charter school because of SB 98. And if you're not aware of what SB 98 is, it is the budget trailer bill in regards to education. And what it did was it froze student funding at the school that the student was enrolled in as of February 29, 2020. So if you're trying to move schools right now to a charter school or a school with growing enrollment, you're going to have a very hard time getting in. What feedback have you ladies been hearing about that? And we do have Debbie here. Debbie, if you have questions, you can feel free to unmute and talk to us. Laurel, I know you run a rather large homeschool page, Facebook group. So what are you hearing on there from families?
Most families are finding the wait lists for the charters filled, and that's very frustrating. And a lot of people have decided to homeschool because they don't want to go back to whatever public school is going to look like in the fall. Right. They don't want their kids to have to be, about half the people don't want to do distance learning. It's not working for them at all. It was basically pointless at the end of last school year. Or they don't want to see their children have to wear the mask, be behind the shield for, no lunch, no recess. It just sounds like a joyless existence. And I understand that kids do have it. So there are real problems. So a lot of people seem willing to go ahead and be independent. We do get some people saying, I would rather do virtual learning. And there are my understanding is there are some charters that are doing virtual learning only with no funds, and they can still afford to take on enrollment. Yeah. Or the community home education program is still enrolling. Right. Other than that, it looks like independent is the way to go. And I would encourage anybody who's looking at that to, take that leap of faith and be in online communities and inform yourself like this to be ready to do that.
Right. I did pull a list. I noticed that someone's asking if they can ask questions. Yes. I did some research on charter schools and in California, and let's face it, our community uses this block of them, and there are a lot more. And I noticed that many of the other ones that aren't necessarily as popular with us from year to year in the homeschool community, they are still enrolling students. So I created a list on Homeschool Concierge of all the charter schools and hybrid charter schools. And I'm encouraging families that really feel stuck, like they don't want to file independently and they want some kind of school support, to reach out to the schools within their county and within bordering counties to see what's available, because I did find there was a number of them that are still available. So I guess I can try and find that for you guys. Hang on. So you can see what it looks like. And we're working on trying to get it mapped so you guys can see what counties are near you, but it's a project. So I posted it while it's still in the works. But right now all the schools are listed, so you could look on a separate map to see the counties and kind of look for yourself at who touches you. Adjacent counties. So let me see here. All right, let me see if I can share.
I just wanted to add that I am actually surprised to see so many families really willing to think about the private homeschool option.
Yeah.
If they aren't going to make it onto, from a wait list, then what are their options? And so it's been really great to see them, because I think that is thinking outside the box a little bit, and it can feel very scary for a new family. I mean, I knew when I was deciding to homeschool that it was my decision, without something like a pandemic, without all of the things that are happening outside in our social world that are making life difficult. And yet I still felt a little overwhelmed. So I just am really encouraged by people's bravery, by their courage to think outside the box. And we are definitely here to help.
Yes.
Laurel and I don't know if you want me to mention this, Laurel, but we are moderators who assist Wendy on the one of the Facebook groups. And we see a lot of new families asking questions there. And so just always feel free to ask those questions. That's how you learn.
Yeah, feel free to join our group. We love to support homeschool families. Laurel, what's the name of you have an Orange County group specifically?
Yes, Homeschooling OC on Facebook. It's a group for Orange County and the surrounding counties. But what I'm seeing with people being willing to join, make their own private school, is people are feeling strong and fortified to do that. They're going, if this is what I have to do to make my own choices, they're willing to do that. And I'm like you said, Paige, really impressed that people are willing to take that leap and go, whatever it takes, this is what we're going to do. And so definitely we want to be there to support those new families.
Right.
Absolutely.
So here's the post I made with all the charter schools. We have a mom asking specifically, how does she find one that can serve San Bernardino? So I'll start there because that will be a good explanation. Sorry, it's a little slow, I think, because I'm also streaming video. So you're just I listed them alphabetically, and I put a little note here. Non-classroom based charter schools are legally allowed to serve students who live in the county of the district that they're authorized by, as well as students in any adjacent county. Some charters may choose to serve fewer counties than they are legally authorized to. Others may have been told by their authorizers which counties they can serve. So basically, you definitely need to call the school or really thoroughly read the website to see if you can enroll there. You can also message me and I can help you research. But here's what I'm trying to do for every county. Well, I'm making my poor husband do it because he's good at graphics, but we're showing you like your county and then the counties that touch, and that will help you know where you can look on the list. So let's go to San Bernardino. And I've also noticed that most of the counties in California start with S. The things you learn while you're researching these things. Let's see here. Where am I?
I see one right, I guess they're both right here.
L. We're only in M, N, O, P, Q, R.
While you're scrolling through the alphabet, I wanted to point out that charters, non-classroom based charters, are not the only option. Right. Usually your county Department of Education will have an independent study program, as will your local school district that you would normally be at their brick and mortar school. Like you mentioned, Parkview, with Placentia Linda. I know here Orange Unified they don't really talk about it, but they do have an independent study program. So you can always call your Board of Education and say, here's what I'm trying to do. What do you have to offer me before I try to jump to a charter? It never hurts to get the information.
And Laurel, that's a great point. So I can't pull a list of those. I would have to literally go research every single Board of Education and district, and it would take me forever. So you have to call your local county office of ed or your local school district. Like I live in Placentia Yorba Linda School District, and we had Parkview, and I noticed on their website they actually launched a new online learning platform for the 2021 school year for families that didn't want the distance learning. So you might be surprised by what other options are available through your home district or your local county office of ed. And they wouldn't have the same funding problem that the charter schools are having, because if your student was enrolled there, that money's already in the district and you could move from school to school, no problem. Okay, so here are the schools in San Bernardino. So as you can see, like Elite is one that we typically use in our community. The spring schools are ones we typically use in our community. Excel, we use Sky Mountain, Gorman. So Granite Mountain is one of the past Inspire schools, but you can see all of these other ones that we don't typically use, like Vista Norte. This seems to be a new brand of schools, and they are still enrolling. So you might want to check them out. I noticed they were in a lot of different areas, and so you can go and look at their K-8 program is a homeschool program. The information's not popping up, but I specifically called them to make sure, and they said that most of their schools are still enrolling. So if you're interested in doing that, you can check out the schools. Okay, how do I get back? There we go. Check out the schools that you haven't heard us discussing in our group. Like, I'm not actually sure. Have you guys heard if Sky Mountain is still enrolling? I know that Sage Oak was on a wait list now, right?
Yeah.
So, and then like if your student is middle school or high school, there's even additional options that only serve middle school and high school. So, I hope that kind of makes sense.
Wendy, do you maybe want to, you or Laurel want to help families understand like the difference between like the district or the chart and the public charters versus independent study charters versus the district programs in terms of flexibility, freedom, curriculum, funds, etc.?
Well, I think Laurel, you have experience with CHEP, don't you? Or no?
Sure. So, and I was just going to say, for anybody who's new to homeschooling out there, please take a breath and give yourself some grace, because there are a lot of acronyms. There are a lot of there's a lot of jargon, and it takes a little while to understand it. Right. And I went through it, and it still feels like yesterday, even though it was 15 years ago. It's really confusing for a long time. And every year the state throws new things at us, so you have to always be learning, because that's just the nature of the beast. But if you do a PSA, you file, and then you say, this is my family, this is my home, we're a private school. You get to name it, and it is incumbent upon you to keep your records, which mostly means you keep attendance. And pretty much homeschoolers agree, we're never absent, because life is a learning process and you don't call in sick to your own home. So, and with that, you have ultimate freedom and ultimate authority over how you run your educational life. You don't have a public school teacher looking over your shoulder. And that's that. You also don't get any funds. The government doesn't help you at all, because you've said, I'm a private school and I got this handled. Awesome, great. If you go through the charter, there are a variety of charters that will do different things for you. Some of them will just give you curriculum and online education, and it may be that most of these are waitlisted, but some of them will give you instructional funds to help you get classes or materials and resources, books, to work on your education at home through the public school system. But that's through the new budget that got passed in California. That's what kind of got frozen, is those learning opportunities. And that's a bummer, because they've been a really big part of the homeschooling conversation in California for many years now. If you go through your school district, either the county, your county board of education, or the school districts that you're associated with, you're more likely to get teacher support, They will keep your records. You're enrolled with the public school. You'll get the curriculum that they would offer you if you went to the local brick and mortar, but your time is your own. And you just have to turn in work samples. This is true of any of these non-independent options. Is you're going to meet with a teacher who is kind of your caseworker. You're going to turn in work samples. They're going to keep track of where you are in the curriculum. And so really, homeschoolers have always sort of played back and forth with that slider bar and decided how much independence they want as to how much support they want.
Right.
And you figure out where you fall on that. You know, am I just like, I want all the independence and none of the sport, or all of the sport, and please help me out. So it's, you know, totally fine. It's up to you what makes you comfortable, and it will change from year to year. I'm not even going to say may change. It really does change. So if you find something that works and works for years, great, but it doesn't always go that way.
Right, and that's great. And we had a little bit of experience at Parkview, and there's actually some things I really love about Parkview, and I know a number of families that are very happy there. They have a very robust offering. They do a play all the time. They have hands-on science things. They normally, non-pandemic world, they're on campus a lot with different offerings for the students. What didn't work for Athens was that we had to follow that district curriculum. And so it didn't work for us. That's the only reason we left that program. So definitely check those out. They may work for you and your student. You may end up loving it. I think the other thing, did we briefly talk about PSPs?
No, we haven't. Go forth.
Go forth, you're so funny. So another option, there are a lot, I can bring it up again actually, there are a lot of what you call PSPs. A PSP is a private school satellite program, and what those are, from the knowledge I have of them, they're basically very experienced homeschool parents who file the PSA and will offer their support to other families in their record keeping services to be able to help support other parents who aren't as confident in their record keeping services or their record keeping. So there's a number of them, and I also created a list of them for families if they are interested in finding out more. Can you see?
I just wanted to mention that in addition to being like experienced homeschool parents, because I had a park day with a really wonderful experienced homeschool parent who was helping to file, on behalf of all these students, she was filing for them. Right. She was filing for the parents, and there were no services, nothing offered. It was just helping us kind of understand how the private option works. There are also lots of different organizations. They may be Christian, they might be not Christian, they might be co-op groups, they could be particular groups that are arranged around a curriculum that lots of people are using. Right. And they typically charge a fee, and that's going to depend on the different services, if a curriculum is included or not. But basically the PSP and the PSA, to get to those acronyms Laurel mentioned, are the two private options in California. And they both involve filing as a private school. And the district option and the charter option are the public options. In addition, there is one last option that isn't talked about a lot, and that's the credentialed teacher option / tutor. And so if you happen to hold a California teaching credential and it correlates to the grade that your child would be enrolled in, you can opt to be that teacher of record, and you don't have to file a PSA. You don't even have to hold on to records, although all of the state organizations recommend keeping 2 to 3 work samples that just show that you're educating your child in this method. I think we've known a couple of moms who've done this, but most people are choosing either the private or the public option.
Right. So here's the list that we compiled. We put the non-religious ones at the top, and then as you can see, there's a lot more that have a religious affiliation. So this list is also on Homeschool Concierge, and there's a ton of them. But yeah, you're going to want to read their websites, contact them, make sure they're going to be a good match, make sure you can afford whatever the fee is. Most of them are very reasonable, and see what other services they provide.
And the other services will tend to be park days, support, social opportunities. So yeah, I was just thinking of holding up a sign with a dollar sign, basically saying, if you file as an independent school, you're not paying somebody to do that. It's free to file, but all of the expenses of educating your children are on you.
Right.
If you hire a private school satellite program, you're tending to pay somebody else to do the filing and to give you some kind of support. They're not going to provide all the materials, but there's going to be something that they're going to include other than filing usually, and it's usually social support. Right. If you go with the county system or your local district or a charter, or some charters, some online charters, it's usually a wash. It doesn't cost you anything, but nobody's going to pay you to educate your children. However, some of the charter school programs, non-classroom based charters, had instructional funds or planning funds or whatever they want to call it this year, about how you can hire tutors or classes or pay for books and curriculum. But again, that's kind of off the table with our state budget right now.
Right.
And I just want to mention that if you're filing privately, you are then eligible for all kinds of educator discounts, which exist for schools and for teachers of schools. And so you can create your own homeschool private school ID card. You can take that to Barnes and Noble. They're still running a program called the Educator Discount. You can get 20% off of all educational books, which it's very open and free as far as if you guys ever used it, you can get quite a lot of things fall under education. And so for years, that was how I bought my curriculum. Since I was doing kind of a literary-based unschooling approach, we would just buy all kinds of books. And so it's really worth looking into the different discounts that you can get, because it can sound overwhelming, like suddenly you've got to provide all of this curriculum. But curriculum is this very broad word. It doesn't have to mean a boxed curriculum or the same thing that's used at the school system. It can be very eclectic. You can pick and choose from workbooks. You can get free worksheets online. You can buy books and use them yourself. And so it's just, it's a lot more open and free than you might think it is. And it can be very cheap and affordable to homeschool privately.
Yeah, well, I remember we used to have our meetings with our charter school teacher in the library, and my kids would fill up our rolling bin full of library books. Anyone that's on our panel discussion with us is welcome to unmute or go on camera and join in our discussion. You don't have to be silent, but if you want to be silent, that's okay as well. So we have a mom who says she's brand new to homeschooling. Her kids are 11th, 9th, and 7th grade. She's appreciating our wealth of knowledge and experience. Yes, Claudia, field trips. Field trips are wonderful. And you can get lots of great deals. Yeah, when things start opening up again, if you're sticking with homeschooling, there are lists online. You can look for, so many places have free homeschool days or reduced homeschool days for us. Legoland. Wait, someone's chatting. Oh yeah, okay. Yeah, so Legoland, the Aquarium of the Pacific, where's some other, the Natural History Museum in LA, like Wells Fargo, like so many. Every museum seems to have one, and there are complete lists online. I know I can find a list and post it in the comments later, but
yeah, that's something that I'm working on, and it's hard to be exhaustive because there's so many resources.
Yeah.
So Claudia is asking about special needs, where to get services or pay out of pocket, and also using insurance. So I have to say that I'm not necessarily an expert in this. When my Athen, when they wanted to evaluate him for special ed services, I decided through the charter school that that wasn't something I wanted for him. I wanted to be able to adapt and accommodate myself at home with him. I did not want an extra set of eyes telling me that he was behind all the time. I already knew he was behind. So I opted out of that, which is an option. But again, a lot of services are completely necessary for students with other disabilities. So do you guys have any input on that?
Yes, I went through the school district for a speech therapy assessment when Skylar was 3. We weren't even yet homeschooling. We had actually been attending a preschool, and he was having trouble with his R's, which is actually, I've learned, like one of those common things that take kids a while to learn. You have to use your tongue in a specific way for the R.
Right.
But we went to the school district, and they said, yes, come in for a free assessment. And if they thought that he needed that therapy, they would have provided it free of charge at the district level. So you'd have to drive to the district office, maybe not your local school, neighborhood school office. But that's as far as we got because he was on the border. We did actually go back a year later when he was 4 for a second assessment to see where he was with his R's. And he was within a range of normal, and we, so I'm not sure how long that window is. I feel like I should know. I'm sorry, I don't.
I know technically that the district is responsible. So if you file independently to homeschool and you need special ed services and you want them through the district, they're required to give them to you.
All the way K through 12.
Yeah.
I do know from having worked with adults with developmental disabilities that those services extend all the way to age 22 for kids within their school district.
Right.
Oh,
And also, I find that a lot of families feel like having that IEP document will help in college. So if you go to college and you need extra time to test, or you need the test read to you or anything like that, that the college can make accommodations for you as well. So it's definitely worth looking into to see if it's going to help your child or if it's something you would prefer to opt out of.
Yeah, you definitely have to do it before, I think it's before 12th grade.
Yeah.
If you're not getting services before that time, you won't be eligible, even though the window would extend to age 22. I think you have to get evaluated. That was my understanding. I could be wrong.
Do, while they're in school, yes.
Wendy, Caroline has a comment.
Oh, hang on.
To share with us.
About you're using your insurance. If you want to use your insurance to pay for special ed services, you would talk to your pediatrician about that and needing those services. And there's also things called regional centers that you can look into what services they provide, and they will possibly send you back to the district depending on how old your child is. So I believe they support services for children prior to being school aged and possibly after, like graduation. Okay, what was Carolyn saying?
She wanted to share a website, freelyhomeschool.com. Did you want to read it?
Freelyhomeschool.com. And she says, what does she say about it?
She says, freelyhomeschool.com, and thank you so much for sharing, is a blog that posts everything this author can find to educate your children for free. She said it's not her blog. There are free ebooks on sites like Gutenberg.org and free audiobooks at LibriVox.org.
Nice.
Thank you, Carolyn.
Thanks, Carolyn.
We'll take these suggestions and we'll add them to the resources list we're working on. So thank you.
Yeah, that's great. There's a lot of free resources online. I typically find that I just Google search, like, oh, if they're interested in, like, my middle son is obsessed with dinosaurs. And so I'll just Google search things for him and we'll read about things and watch videos. And in fact, we did a road trip at the beginning of this last school year before COVID hit. And he, because watching me do all this research for years online to help them find information, he actually planned, like, from California to New York, our stops. And all these natural history museums that we went to, places with butterfly exhibits. And And then he had us, the last stop on his list was the Mothman Festival in West Virginia. So we went to the Mothman Festival, and I believe it was last September, and it was great. I didn't even know about these things called cryptids. My 12-year-old taught me about them, and it was all very interesting. So, and it was really fun to see how that tiny town comes alive during the Mothman Festival, because thousands and thousands of people come from all over. And that was an experience we had never had, and he is the one that researched that and taught us about that, and it was all free research online. So I think that can be a beautiful thing. Sorry, did Elizabeth say something?
Yes. You want me to read the comment?
Yeah, would you? And I'll look on the Facebook ones. Go ahead.
Okay, Elizabeth Lee has said, considering I think she means a PSA for her 3 children. Can I utilize programs like Funcation and Power Homeschool and supplement myself? Does that work? And can I use those platforms for tracking attendance and record keeping?
So your record, I'm not familiar with those, if they provide you with some kind of calendar to track attendance.
Elizabeth, you can pay out of pocket for those programs if you want to. And as far as tracking attendance and record keeping, while some of these programs might offer that, you could use something as simple as a wall calendar.
Right.
That's what we did.
Yeah, I just printed a free calendar offline where it was like just a blank piece of paper, and I just wrote on the top, days absent will be marked in red, and I slid it in my folder, and my kids are never absent because they're always learning, like Laurel said. So.
And I think there might even be some free pages. I used to print off free unschool record keeper. I loved getting it all together in a portfolio. And then the poor thing would sit neglected for months. So I ended up just using a wall calendar in the end, because that's where I marked like the dentist appointments on, and then the field trips were on there.
Yeah, that will work too, totally. So I think that you're going to keep those records the way that it best matches your lifestyle.
Right. Don't listen to veteran lazy people like me. If you want to be ambitious, please try. I've always wanted to be the perfect homeschooler, but my kids stopped me.
So what?
I ultimately embraced it.
For my PSA, I just recorded what classes were available for him, and then what other records are even required after that. It just says in there that you have to record the course of study, and then I record grades because he's a high schooler, so I'm going to have to do a transcript when he's done. But there's not really a lot of other records that she's going to have to keep. But if there's something in those programs that she wants to print out, she can. But I wouldn't necessarily include that print out if I pass it on to another school. So if the child goes back to school, you only want the bare minimum of records. Would you guys agree with that?
Absolutely.
And it's important to point out that what the law requires of you if you homeschool privately are that you keep attendance. Right. And that is sort of the big one. You keep attendance. You are not required to show those records to anybody unless it's a court order. It's really a deep record. And so you do it, you keep it in there, but you don't need to show it to anybody. You don't need to tell the next school you go to. Those are really your private files.
Right.
Absolutely. If you're record keeping like that, it's usually because you're trying to track, especially if you have multiple kids, what you want to accomplish, where they're at, those sorts of things. Maybe your husband isn't quite on board yet. And so for the first year before you really get him on board, this is how it was for me anyway. You're keeping these more robust records just to show like, look, we're really learning, when you really know in fact that you are. The other important thing is just you're printing off that confirmation of your filing of your PSA. So when you fill it out online, you'll be prompted to either save the file and or print it directly from there. And that's your intent to establish your own private school. Those records are only used for statistical purposes. And if you have less than 6 students enrolled in your home private school, you won't even go up on a directory. Your information will stay private. So you don't have to worry that your name and address, unless you have a large family,
Right.
is going to be online somewhere.
Right. So here's a good question from Nicole. If filing a new PSA, do we need to file one now for August and September and another one in October for 2021 school year? Or do we just file in October?
Only October. Only October. October is when the state collects all of the affidavits, not just from homeschoolers, because remember, homeschooling is not technically legally recognized. So this form is for all private schools, your local Catholic school, your local Christian school, your local Democratic free school, if you have one. And that's when they want you to also file. They know homeschoolers are using that, and that's when they want to collect it. Now, if you establish your private school after October 15th, then please just file right away, whatever day that is. Don't wait for next year. But if you're starting school in August, you want to wait till October 1st. October 1st through 15th.
When I pulled Athen out in November, I filed in November. It was after the October 15th date, but it was still during that school year. So the CDE just doesn't want you filing in the summer or until October 1st through 15th.
Right.
Right.
And I'd like to just expand a little bit on what Paige said. The state of California does not recognize homeschooling as separate from any other kind of education. We are all enrolled in either private schools or public schools. So if you file a PSA, you're a private school. If you hire a PSP, would be the same as going and enrolling in your local church school, or you're with a public school. Those are the only options. And that's just what we all are. We're all enrolled in school.
Right.
And we like it that way.
Right.
Other states might say, oh, it's so terrible, it's not legal. But no, we like it this way because we don't want all of these laws. I've moved now from California. I'm in a state where it's recognized legally, and it's a little more of a challenge to homeschool. We like the freedom that we have here. Carolyn is saying something. Can I read out loud? Does anyone
Yes,
mind?
please.
Most public schools won't care about your records. They also do not have to grant credits to high schoolers who have attended non-accredited private schools, PSAs or PSPs. Thank you, Carolyn. You should be on this talk with us.
Yeah, why don't you unmute, Carolyn?
Feel free to speak if you want to.
I'm unmuting, and I'm not putting on my camera mostly because I'm sorting and folding laundry right now.
Well, thank you for unmuting.
You know how you
Hi,
multitask?
Wendy.
Hey, you, how are you?
Good.
Good.
No, I have 6 children, and I've homeschooled for 14 years. So my oldest just graduated from a local public school.
Mm-hmm.
The younger 5 are still homeschooled. But when we moved to California, he wanted to go to public school. And so we were like, okay, we'll let you try it. I went to enroll him. He should have been a junior. And they said, well, we don't recognize credits from non-accredited private schools, which is what our homeschool was. I had never been with a charter or anything up to this point.
Right.
And so my son was kind of on the young side for a junior. I said, can we enroll him as a sophomore and like get all his credits done? And they said, sure. And so he stayed an extra year in high school. He finished 4 years of public school in 3 years. And he's off to college now, but well, he's staying at home and he's enrolled for online school. But yeah, that's just one thing that I think a lot of parents just need to keep in the back of their mind if they think they might transition their child back to a public high school. If you do a PSA or something like that, they may not grant you those credits that that student has done. So my son did 2 years of high school that he got 0 credit for from the public school, but it was his choice and he was happy with it, and he's doing great. So
yeah, I would definitely reach out to your local district if you plan to file a PSA for a year or two. I've heard other stories where they did accept the credit, so I think it might depend.
it really depends on the school board
Yeah.
and their policies.
Yes.
Well,
And this is a huge issue right now because there are a lot of high schoolers that don't want to go to school and they don't want to do distance learning. They would ordinarily pull out and do private for a year, but their school is saying then you're not going to get credit for that year when you come back. So all over California, this is a huge issue people are dealing with.
Right.
This would be a good time to talk about dual enrollment, I think,
Yeah.
which is you are welcome to go to your local junior college, your two-year college, and take classes while you're in high school. And usually your college, you find the college that's closest to you, and on their website, it will talk about it. It's sometimes, it's dual enrollment, concurrent enrollment. They may have their own name for it. Last year, our local one called it a CAP student. They have a different name for it, but they will have how you do it if you're going to a public school or how you do it if you're a homeschool. But they're pretty easygoing about it, and it makes it easy. And so you can be taking high school credit and college credit at your local two-year college, and it's free as long as you're going to, like, say, a charter high school. You can be taking up to 3 classes with your charter high school and then get up to 11 units at your local college, which is wonderful. They can be working on both their college life and their high school life at the same time. All you have to pay, the credits are free. You pay for registration and books and whatever weird little fees they have, like a health fee or a transportation fee. But for us, it ended up being about $30 a semester. And then the classes were just included.
Right.
And
a great option.
And the other option is if your child is a teenager who's kind of ready to be done and you're filing a private school affidavit, you can say, hey, guess what? You've officially graduated. And we know some homeschoolers who have graduated their kids. Mm-hmm. And then you have to pay for college. You're not going to get that really awesome deal of the free credits that you do as a dual enrolled student. But you can start working they can start working towards their college path if they're ready for that early, or they can take a little time off and go and travel, and you can officially just, have moved on from that path.
There's also the CHESP, which is the proficiency exam. So, anytime, what is it, after 10th grade, you can take that test, and your success with that test is the same as a high school diploma. And so, there are a lot of options right now.
Right. Yeah, I want to say that had I remained in California, the option we probably would have chosen would have been to pull out of the charter for my last one. I've still got a 16-year-old, and gone with Beach High School or West River Academy, which is a PSP, and they focus on helping students provide a really nice portfolio, transcripts, and they kind of get you ready for college. I think West River Academy has a special high school program that's $350-ish, which is, I think, pretty affordable. Mm-hmm. If you want someone to help you craft a portfolio. And as we see more and more colleges going test optional, portfolios are going to become the primary way if you're going in as a freshman. Mm-hmm. Because the more affordable way is probably to go in as a transfer student from a community college.
So we have some other good questions coming through now. How do you graduate your children? How do they receive a high school diploma if you're on a PSA?
You make a transcript and you print a diploma.
You issue it, and that's the transcript that you submit when they're entering any type of college. And lots of colleges in California have come to understand the law as well, and so they know that you're a homeschooler, and there may be a path that's specific to you. That's specific for a private filing homeschool family. They're used to homeschoolers, and they love homeschoolers, most of them.
Right.
I even had, I will say, had a friend who went so far as to make a wax seal for her transcripts. You can order them online.
And if creating the transcript seems overwhelming, I know that there are some like PSPs, I'm thinking of Marty, that will help you just put the transcript together, where you can go online and get the form and do it yourself. But that part doesn't have to be overwhelming. And I really love what Paige said about putting together your portfolio, that if you're a relaxed educator, you should still keep your own records as to what they were passionate about. What did they spend their time doing? Or, if you're sports minded or literary. One of the things that my eldest did was she participated in NaNoWriMo, which is National Novel Writers Month. And she, in her high school years, wrote 3 different manuscripts and got all the way to querying and looking for editors. So you write those things down and you keep those in, you know, your journal. Our photo records are very important to us. Our house calendar is very important to us. You can look and see, wow, there was all that music and all that reading and all of that, you know, whatever you were doing. Right now it's role-playing games. We're playing a lot of Dungeons and Dragons, which in high school speak is interactive storytelling, you know. And our charter is perfectly happy to take that as an elective. And there's a lot of math and there's a lot of writing and storytelling and craftsmanship that goes into that. So fortunately with the charter, we've had wonderful support where they said, you absolutely should get credit for what they actually do, what you were actually working on. So you don't even have to be very outside the box to look at your life and say, wow, this child is a baker and there's a lot of math there and there's a lot of science there, and whatever it is they're involved in is the way they learn. And it doesn't always have to look like the educational subjects that we've been drilled in over and over and over again.
Right.
Yes, and like you said with Martin Forte from Excellence in Education, and also West Beach from Beach High School, and Shauna, I can't pronounce her last name, Shauna R.
Yes.
From Pacific Sands Academy. These are people who have a lot of experience working with eclectic homeschoolers and high schoolers who are filing PSAs, and they might sit down with you and have an interview with you and say, tell me what you did. And all the wonderful things that Laurel just described, they would exactly note, oh, that's, you know, medieval history or creative storytelling or whatever it was you said, Laurel. Something really fabulous.
Interactive storytelling. I love it.
Because it is really fabulous. The things that when you're really engaged with your kids and you're on that journey together, there's just lots of learning. You can't stop us from learning. Every day, all of us here in this room, we're learning. Mm-hmm. And it may not be what's going to help us get that official degree, but some of us are experts in all kinds of things.
Absolutely. Hi, Ruby. We saw you pop in, and please tell us what you'd like to know.
Oh, awesome. Hi. So I'm like a first-time homeschooler, and my question was, how do you homeschool multiple kids at the same time? So I have very small children, a second grader, a first grader, and a preschooler. And right now we've been on kind of summer break, and what I'm finding so challenging is just having everyone sit down and work on something, because preschooler is just too little. She's just all over the place, distracting the other children. And my greatest fear is, up till now, I've sent my kids to private school, so I feel like they're actually ahead of the curve a little bit. My greatest fear is, what if I take on this huge responsibility and they actually fall behind or I mess up? I don't know. So I would love some advice or input.
They're not, and this is a great question. This is actually one of my favorite questions, because the school, I call it the educational institution, looks at your kids at the age they are. And I think of it as your family as a unit. You have 3 children at beautiful different ages, and they are all going to learn at the same time in different ways. Mm-hmm. And so if you can just carve out a little time with each of them, that sitting down part, let some of that go, right? Okay. You don't have to be sitting to learn. You don't have to be at a table to learn. One of my favorite things is, if your second grader is reading a book that they're happy and engaged in, maybe they could read to all of you a little bit. Snuggle time learning is so valuable. We're all going to sit and, hey, sister found this YouTube video that she thought was totally fascinating. Let's all check that out. You know, the things that you can do together that aren't separating by age, by grade level, by subject matter, it's all part of the process. And so there's this wonderful word that we're all familiar with that I would offer to you, which is de-schooling.
Yeah.
Letting go of some of those institutional mindsets and going, wow, we all baked these cookies, and one of them wrote down the recipe and one of them doubled the recipe. And, you know, we all learned about how to be safe around the oven. All of those things matter in real life, even if they're hard to quantize in state standards. I'm really not a fan of state standards. I'm a fan of real life education.
Right.
Sure.
I would say that when I was first starting out, I wasn't as relaxed as I am now. And so I had some of those, I remember feeling some of those concerns. And so what I chose to do was focus on subjects where the state standards are pretty flexible. So social studies and science, those were things that we could all do together. And those are things where the curiosity and getting engaged is the most important thing, because that's going to help with memory and retention. Mm-hmm. And so anything you can do that's hands-on for those particular topics, I think will get everybody engaged and probably hitting those benchmarks naturally. And then for when I was more traditional, which was like a second, but I did focus on language arts individually, and that was the only thing that I felt I really needed to work one-on-one with them on. But everything else I adapted. And one of the things I did, and Laura was a part of this, was I found a book series. Magic Treehouse was, I think it's still relevant today.
Very.
And we would choose, we wouldn't go in sequence. If you remember, Laura, we chose the history ones, right? And so I knew I was helping my oldest, who I was focusing on with language arts, by reading aloud with him. And he was reading aloud to the siblings who were like doodling or playing with Legos while the book was being read aloud. And then we would have a field trip, which is hard to do right now, around the particular history aspect of the book. And the field trips were really fun. I would call up museums and just ask the craziest things, like, can we have a potluck in that beautiful room by the orange orchard? Because we're studying a book about Victorian homes that have orange orchards. And they would say,
Okay.
we never had anyone ask that, but maybe. And so we did things like that. And I know this is a difficult time with field trips, but you can still even come together like we're doing and maybe read a little bit and do an activity online together. I also wanted to mention, we have a comment from Carolyn, I don't know if it's Caroline or Carolyn. I'm sorry if I'm saying it wrong. If you want to unmute yourself, you can read your comment. So
You
Ruby
can call me Carrie. How about that? Just
okay.
I was going to say, because I have 6 children and they were all born within 10 years. So I started with the very first, kindergartner who was 5, and I had a 3.5-year-old, and I had a baby, and then I added more babies. One of the most important things that I did was start the day with preschool time. So in the morning, we would start with 100% focus on the littlest human beings in the house. We would sing songs, we would read a story, we would play a game all together with the older kids involved. And they knew this is about teaching the littlest person, head, shoulders, knees, and toes, practicing one new letter, just fun stuff. It didn't have to be super structured. And just like intentionally focusing on the smallest child. And then we would pull out a new bin of toys they hadn't seen in a while, put it in front of them, and then I would go and take a few minutes with one of the older kids, because I always found started the day with some of the hardest things, whether it's a few minutes of math or language arts, if someone's struggling with reading. That new bin of toys would give me that few minutes. And then after a little bit, we would clean up those toys and put them away, because, I learned quickly that you don't leave everything out accessible all the time. Mm-hmm. And then we would do a snack. And maybe while they were having a snack, we could spend a few more minutes in intentional focus. But I also loved Kumon workbooks for my preschoolers. They have a cutting workbook. They have easy mazes, KUMON. They're just absolutely wonderful for the little ones to feel like they're quote unquote doing school. And I would sit them in a booster seat or a high chair, pull out Play-Doh, whatever I could. I wanted to make sure they were contained so that I didn't feel like Play-Doh was getting smushed into my teeth
Mhm.
or something. But starting the day with some intentional preschool time, even if it's just 15 minutes of something with the little ones so they feel loved and paid attention to and engaged. And then that gives you a few minutes to kind of, steal those moments with the older children, whether they're struggling to read or they're trying to expand their reading skills, or you want to work on multiplication tables or whatever. And then, like what Paige was saying, as much as you can do with all of them together. Obviously, the little one's not going to get as much out of a science curriculum or a history story as the older students, but it's amazing what they do catch. So we would do the same history, and then I did a lot of narration. I'd be like, okay, guys, retell me what we just learned. Because I love like a Charlotte Mason method, the literature-based. And it's pretty amazing what, a 3 or 4 year old can come up with. And my kids became really good at kind of reading comprehension later on. People would say, wow, they remember what we told them. And a lot of kids that go to traditional school struggle with that. So those are some of my best things, like really start the day focusing on the youngest person and feed into them and do some fun things with them and sing some songs and read a story just geared straight to them, and then incorporate them throughout the rest of your day.
Right.
But if you find a good rhythm, it really helps. And you're constantly changing things up. It keeps them from getting bored and getting into stuff that they shouldn't be. And so yeah, those are some of my best tips for the little people. Now my littlest person is 8 years old, and it's like heaven. So for all of you, there's hope.
I do everything with my kids kind of all at once, even though they're all 5 years apart. And I find that as the conversation continues throughout the day about whatever it was we were researching or playing with, or that the older kids are talking about it and the younger kids are talking about it, and they're getting other information from each other based on what parts clicked in their brain. And I'm not actually having to do much of that teaching. They're teaching each other or helping each other understand things on a kid level. The things that we experienced as a family, the conversations just continuing and flowing.
Awesome. I do have a follow-up. I wanted to ask, in terms of curriculum, what do you ladies might think that works best for you in those ages? So a second grader or first grader, what would be a good curriculum to invest in?
Don't invest in curriculum.
Yeah, exactly.
No?
Library, go to the library, read books together, tell stories, play games. I'm a big fan of game schooling. You learn how to read, how to take turns, how to do the math to keep score. Boxed curriculum is just so overrated, and it really doesn't work for a lot of people. It costs a lot of money. It's a big investment. And then when you do find your groove and then you don't use it, and then you feel bad that you spent the money on it.
Yeah.
And if you can, when we can get back to Park Day, the idea of Park Day is huge in homeschool culture, where you have a place to go see people who are doing what you're doing and making friends and being outside one day a week or more. We tend to share stuff. You go, I'm done with this, do you want it? And so it's the free table thing. Right. Collect free stuff. I got a box by my door, I'd love to give it to you, of just that age stuff. So don't spend money, because there's so much between what's online and what's available in your library. Don't buy anything.
I have to say that I have a $700 curriculum from kindergarten 14 years ago that is still sitting on and I probably used about 10% of it. We read a lot of the books,
right?
But it's just it becomes, I don't know, it becomes almost like an albatross. Yeah. So for me, I tended to, my best years of homeschooling where I would buy like a math workbook for each kid. Maybe I loved, when they're early readers, I loved the Explode the Code books. And they have the pre-reading ones that get ready for the code, get set for the code, go for the code, and then Explode the Code 1, 2, 3. We probably usually did maybe Explode the Code 1 and 2. When they're just like phonics workbooks. Teach your child to read in 100 easy lessons. I think I used copy for $5. And we make it about halfway through that book. And then my kid can read. And then I never even finish it. But I never even paid full price for that. All of the full curriculums that we've ever gotten have been sorely disappointing. And my kids get very frustrated. Online programs, even like Time for Learning and stuff, while they're great and they can help kind of give you some structure, my kids got sick of them really fast.
Yeah, mine too.
So the only curriculum I ever finished was AmblesideOnline.org. It was the free Charlotte Mason one. And that was just because it was essentially a book list. And I would make these little check off things, and we would study a composer a month, and we would study an artist a month. And so that was my curriculum. You know, I'd look and see, oh, well, what's the composer this month, whenever I felt like, you know, adding some interest to the day. And we would read through different stories and things like that. But having the daily checklists and the really detailed curriculum ended up being more of a burden than a help.
I would tend to agree. I would say that if you do want to try a curriculum, because I did when I first started, I wasn't sure I was going to be successful as my child's teacher. I was so scared when we first started. Going with an independent study charter isn't a bad thing if you're already on a wait list or you think you're going to get in, because it allows you to experiment. You might come to the same conclusions that we've all come to, but sometimes coming to it on your own, you know, you have to really learn that for yourself. I worked for an independent study charter school, and I did hear lots of parents who liked Bookshark. I did hear lots of families who liked Timberdoodle, but you're able to like them casually if you're not dishing out the $7, $8, $9, $1,000 yourself. And so that is one of the benefits of being with an independent study charter school. And then just my own personal opinion, I really feel if you're trying to raise a literate child, then you need to create a world full of literacy. And for a while, I experimented with Thomas Jefferson education. I think it's called leadership education now. And I tried to read these big, huge classic books and just show the kids, look, Mom is reading this. And it ended up being a good experiment. But in the end, I focused on the books that they really liked. And I ended up really liking them too. And we would see the movie, and we would make our own card games around those books. And then behind the scenes, I was always scrambling to put together, knowing what their interest is. How can I come up with something math that's tied to this? How can I bring in a science experiment? And I got very good at this for other children. And the reason I got good at it for other children, because my kids could see through. I was very transparent to them. It was always like, oh, she's trying to do that stealth schooling with us again.
Awesome.
But
Thank you.
You have to experiment. Yes. And the other thing is I had a lot of great experience with Story of the World, even though I am not at all Christian. I don't think it's a particularly Christian curriculum, although there's some debate about that because it focuses a lot on like biblical history.
But it has a bias.
It does have a bias, yeah. So we had and there was an activity book that goes along with that. And if you could get access to maybe an audio file with a discount to listen to it, and then just put the money into the activity book, it'd be worthwhile. And
great piece. That's a wonderful resource.
It's a really great resource, yes. And then even sometimes I agree with workbooks, and I would take my kids to Lakeshore Learning. Can you still go there? Yeah. I don't know if you can. And you use your educator status to get a discount. You get 20% off? Is that what we get? And you just let them buy the workbooks that when they're little they get excited. Yeah, like I picked this out. Mom, it's my workbook. And like Carolyn was saying, you know, you create that time for them, you know, to have that fun. And then if you yourself go and look at the state standards, it can sound overwhelming. Because California website they need a new webmaster over there.
Right, yes, they do. But use the I can statements. Search online for I can statements for your grade level, and those are easier to follow.
But you'd really be surprised at the low level of what they're expecting of kids in public schools. Like, no, the
Really?
holidays, like, oh, that's what we do as a family already for a kindergartner.
Right.
And so familiarizing yourself with some of that might help you relax a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
I also found my kids also like literature-based things. And so for math, we really love, if you do a Google search for living math book lists, we would do a lot just by reading living math and then playing games that went along with that math concept, or studying mathematicians' lives and why they came up with that theory. I also love living history events. They're not as easy to go to right now with the pandemic, but there are a lot of things online, free virtual field trips that you can still partake in when you're studying a particular subject or a particular concept. So definitely look for, like live online virtual field trips. Like the Aquarium of the Pacific has been doing some really awesome classes, like specifically about an octopus, and you're learning everything you need to learn about an octopus, or everything about some of the other animals they have. We also loved Teach Your Child to Read in 100 Easy Lessons, along with Leapfrog videos, which Athen will still get out and be like, Bailey, don't you want to watch the Letter Factory? Which is funny. And then I have really enjoyed different times of our homeschooling experience using Oak Meadow as a jumping off point. So it actually really helped me a lot with Athen in his freshman year. We used some of their courses to just say, oh, look at the kinds of projects that are expected of a high schooler. And then he would really end up kind of customizing those projects, but I did definitely like having that information. The standards could be used as well, but for high school it gets a little more complicated because you have to find a course outline to then match. So that works as well. And yeah, field trips. Living math trip. Yeah, I think I got all of our favorite things. Oh, and then author studies. So our most favorite one we've ever done was Roald Dahl. The boys loved reading the Roald Dahl books, and there's a ton of free resources and lesson plans and things on Roald Dahl. And then my kids are very media. Everything's associated to the media. So they like to read the book and then compare it to the movie. And if there's a play available, we would go see plays. Being able to compare how, things are changed to tell it in a different format. So if it's on stage, the story changes a little bit and they notice those changes. And that's an interesting thing to watch them notice. Oh, they took out my favorite part, or, and then they can explain why that was their favorite part. And then again, we would find, like Paige said, science experiments to go along with that, tie it into history, something in history. So, yeah.
I want to say that math is the one thing that I haven't been completely successful at unschooling. And I'm so grateful to see that there are so many better options available now than there were when we were first starting out in the early 2000s. We came across this online resource that we really liked for math, and it's called Mr. D's Math. These classes, you have to pay out of pocket, and I think your charter school might cover them. It's this math teacher who's really passionate about math, and he brings kids together online. I think he lives in Spain, actually. He's like an expatriate who, like, native California, not native Cal, I think Florida maybe. Anyway, from the United States, and he has a sample. You can watch the sample video. I went through the whole thing and was so excited, and my kid was like, Mom, that is terrible. I'd rather do Khan Academy. So, but then he tried Khan Academy and was like, there's not enough instruction here. Right now he's actually, he graduated. And so he went through the college, like remedial math program. And I was surprised to learn that there's a lot of colleges now that are using ALEX, which is like an AI computer online software program. A lot of schools are using ALEX. And I was wanting to hate ALEX, just being like this very crunchy, earthy person that I am. But I loved actually how it adapted to the things that he was missing or not getting. And so if you have a teen, I might recommend giving ALEX a try. My kid was able to progress through, it's kind of crazy, but great crazy, through 3 classes in one semester at community college through ALEX. And this is something a lot of community colleges have kind of figured out, that you got to help these college kids who are going to be stuck for like a year and a half or 2 years in remedial math. Why not just try this new AI program? And so I wanted to hate it, but I don't at all. So for teenagers, but that wouldn't apply for younger kids.
So we actually used Right Start Math when my kids were young, and it's very game-based and gave them a very deep understanding of numbers, which I was super impressed with. And they use kind of a makeshift abacus. My kids.
What is it called, Wendy? I'm sorry, I missed it.
It's okay. It's Right Start Math.
Right Start Math.
Yeah, and my kids definitely like the gaming side of it more than the lesson side, but the lessons were very, very short. And what I liked about it, because I started using it when I was a new homeschooler and was still trying to create school at home back then, was that it was scripted, because I'm not a teacher, I'm a mom. And so it would tell me like exactly what to do, exactly how to say it. And as I got better and more experienced, then we could just do the games ourselves, sing the songs, and play with the manipulatives. So definitely check out that one, see what you think of that one. And again, look for used curriculum. There's a ton of used curriculum Facebook groups where people are offering for free or buy this from me. So look for that before you try and go out and buy it right now on your own, because everything's going to be a lot more money if you can't get into a charter school, right?
Yeah. I did want to ask you ladies if you have, what are your opinions of apps, and how long should you let like kids play educational apps, I mean, and if there's like certain ones that you really liked with younger kids?
I used to follow, what was it? Every day it would have a list of free apps. Do you remember what it was called, Paige? I'll have to find it and post it in the comments, but they have a list like free apps for kids or something. And every day they post a blog about all the free educational apps that you can download. And sometimes they're like timed where they're only like, they worked with the developer to have it free for 2 days and you have to download it within those 2 days. My kids are very media related, and so they do like apps and playing on their devices. I don't tend to limit their time, but they weren't really very popular until they were older. So I know that there's studies that say letting kids be on them for so long is actually stunting their development. So I would definitely research that and see what you feel about that. Like, I guess I'm kind of weird, like Bailey, I don't let Bailey, she's my youngest. I'm like, oh, you can't do it if it's 3D or virtual reality. I like limit her time on those types of things. But for the most part, I don't limit it. But my kids are older, so
yeah, my kids are older too, and so apps were not the big thing when they were young. Right. Video games were, and I really struggled with that. Once I moved into really homeschooling, I kind of tried out Waldorf at first, and they have a really strong stance against any kind of media. So I felt very guilty that I was letting my kids play Minecraft in particular. And then I started to observe, wait a second, they are learning so much. Yeah. And it took a while for the culture to catch up with Minecraft. And now Minecraft is used in elementary classrooms. Like they've had TEDx speakers. Like, I mean, a lot of us homeschool moms were ahead of the curve. Yeah. We didn't need the TEDx speaker to tell us Minecraft was great. Right. We were, paying attention to what our kids were, what they were drawn to. And so in particularly with Minecraft, I didn't do a lot of limiting, except, we did sit down for dinner as a family every night, and handheld devices were like cost prohibitive for us at that time. It just in the last 8 years, handheld devices are so much more affordable. Almost everybody has one. But I wouldn't want to go out to dinner or visit with the grandparents and everybody's on a handheld device unless we're there for a length of time. I do feel it's important to have kids develop social skills in person. And so if we went to the park days as well, the devices would usually, I'd try to get them to stay in the car. Well, now you don't get to go in person, and the only way you can connect is through a device. But
Well, it's funny. My middle
Yeah.
child, he's my one that likes to fight me on everything and doesn't want me to teach him anything. He can figure everything out on his own. And I will tell you that Minecraft is the only reason that child knows how to read, because he would not
Wow.
let me do any of the other things that I did with the other two with him. And he wanted to know what those kids were typing to each other in there. He wanted to be able to respond, and that is how he learned to read and talk back and forth with people. So Minecraft taught my child to read.
Wow.
It's funny because my oldest, when he was 5 or 6, wanted to play Zelda with his aunt.
Zelda, yes.
And Zelda is super fun, but there's like long paragraphs that you have to read.
Yes.
He kept calling me in to read them to him, and I had babies. And I finally looked at him one day and I said, Elijah, if you want to be able to play this game, you got to figure it out. And I walked away and I never helped him again. And he learned how to read playing Zelda.
Wow.
Then my youngest, she wanted to hang with her older siblings who were playing Roblox. I did not help her, except I think they even helped her set up an account. I had nothing to do with that. And one day, my 11-year-old daughter said, hey, Mom, how do you spell captain? And before I could even answer, my 6-year-old chimes in and she goes, CAPTA. And I was like, how did you know that? And she goes, I taught myself.
That's so cool.
And I was looking through her chat and she was correcting other kids' spelling.
Wow.
Like, honey, that might not be the smartest thing if you want to be friends with these kids. There's definitely benefits to it. I find it's good to, if you have handheld devices, for mommy to control the charging cord.
Mm-hmm.
So if the device runs out, oh, sorry, you get to charge it again and have it back tomorrow. I also don't like them taking them to bed in their room.
Yeah.
Having a certain time where they, a place where they get planted. And then they don't come out until after you've done all the other things you need to do for your day. You get ready for the day, you do your responsibilities, you, spend time together, take care of other things. And then the devices maybe can come out after you've taken care of, helping with the dishes and doing all those other things, because there's nothing worse than mom standing in a dirty kitchen going, hey, why is everybody playing games and I'm the only one?
Right.
So I think you have to find what works for your family and the right rhythm. And each one of my kids was so different.
Yeah.
Some of them will spend, 20, 30 minutes on a game and then they're done. They need to go outside. Other kids, if I don't tear it out of their white knuckled hands, would never leave the computer.
Mm-hmm.
So these are conversations we're constantly having. How do we self-regulate? What's healthy for us? How do you feel? Oh, you're getting a headache because you were looking at the computer screen too long. Well, what does that tell you? So I think they're learning opportunities too, to teach them, what's right for them, what's right for our family, and how to accomplish other things in life.
And often they're more willing to listen to a real life lesson than to mom. I would tell them, you need to turn those off a couple hours before bedtime, or you might not be able to sleep, because they affect different people different ways. And they didn't want to listen to me and they wanted to keep going. And so I'm like, fine. Well, then my older one, he was having trouble falling asleep. And I said, you know what, just try reading, turning it off and just read before bed. And sure enough, he then saw the correlation and started reading again before bed. So
Awesome.
yeah.
I also wanted to touch on something that we haven't yet touched on, but I feel it's really essential to being successful homeschooling. And that's just the lifestyle changes that you are going to need to make. Sometimes there's expectations that you bring with you. I mean, they're going to live a very different life when they're home all day. And so you need to figure out how you can accept that there may be more mess, and then also come up with practical ways of dealing with that. I mean, one example for us was when we had to leave the house, there were no socks. I don't know how this happened, but all of my years of mothering, no matter how many socks came into the house, there were suddenly never any socks when it was time to go. And that would cause me a meltdown because I knew we needed these socks. socks because we were going out to the
Trampoline place? Why did you need socks, Paige?
So I had to do things that maybe other parents who had their kids in school didn't have to do. I had a sock basket in the car. And so I knew, I've got control of the socks. They're in the car. And so there's these little things, and this is what finding a homeschool group is really helpful for, because you can talk to the other homeschool mom. If you try to talk to your neighbors who are public schooled or your friends who are public schooled, they might not understand at all. They might also struggle with some envy or jealousy. They might find themselves being a little more judgmental. What do you mean? Don't you ever do laundry, Paige? Or, socks are only $6. Or why don't you punish these kids who just, and my kids also love to wear socks without shoes. And that was a problem because they ended up with holes. So, and I would have these friends who would say to me, this is so ridiculous. Just put your foot down about these socks. And or whatever it was, right? Whatever the thing was that was causing me a little bit of a meltdown. So I'd go to my homeschool friends and they wouldn't judge me. They would help me brainstorm, and just these little lifestyle things, because you might get burnout yourself and you need to know that that's normal. And you need to learn to adjust your expectations, both for you and for them. You're going to need to find time for yourself. They need to maybe understand mom's having a little bit of time for her. And just be easy on yourself, and also a little easy on them too.
That's great. Thank you.
You're welcome. You can actually reach out to any of us on Facebook. Wendy and I even throw our phone number out there if you want to text us. Like, we're very responsive and helpful.
Awesome.
Yeah. Someone else asked, how or when do we let our former public school know that we will be homeschooling in the fall? I think I want to start by saying you're not going to tell them you're homeschooling in the fall. You're just telling them that you are withdrawing and you're either joining a public school or a private school, and that new school will be ordering your records. So anyone have better advice than that?
No, that's it. The back to school, I love the dollar section at Target.
Oh,
they
yeah.
often have really fun things, really inexpensively. So sometimes much cheaper than Lakeshore or Rainbow Resources, because it's the season. And also you can cruise around on Amazon and see what they have. That whole idea of owning, your child owning the curriculum, if that's what it is, or the workbook, whatever it is. We found a Minecraft, because that's really exciting in our family, in our life. We love games and video games. Minecraft Math, it's on Amazon, and it's like grades 1 and 2, Minecraft Math. And
you have a Minecraft printing and handwriting. There's a whole line of them.
Right, and they were very, very good and really inexpensive. It was about $8 for a book. And I, in all of these years, in 15 years of homeschooling, and all of the, workbooks with 1 or 2 pages used, and then they just go back to the free table, that book, every single page got done, because it was geared toward that interest.
Right. And also look at the 99-cent store in the Dollar Tree. Bailey finds princess workbooks in there all the time that she likes to do. Yep. She's my one who actually likes school. I always say, well, you could go to school, but no, she likes to homeschool. Remember when we would do co-op, Laurel, with the boys, and Bailey was tiny. She would always be the first one at the co-op table. She would crawl into the chair and be like, boys, school time. And the boys would be like, we gotta go do co-op. But yeah, so there's lots of places to find, and Target even has like cool little manipulatives for like $1 or $3. Bailey also loves, they all will have like ceramics to paint and just little art projects. I think she did stained glass windows, ceramics, all kinds of fun stuff. So definitely look in those cheap bins when you're out shopping.
Right, and those are manipulatives. Like Right Start is a huge, expensive thing that's all about manipulatives, but you can play with money.
Right.
You can play with dice. You don't, it always makes me laugh to go and say, oh, you're going to buy $5.99 for $3 worth of dollars and coins in plastic and paper. It's like, just play with money.
Yeah.
Play with dice. Math is all around us, that you can find ways to organize things. You can look up on the internet how how many math lessons you could do with a bag of M&Ms.
Right.
And,
Oh,
you know,
Skittles, Hershey bars, everything. There's all kinds of them. And a lot of those books you can find used
right.
or at your library, because that's all, we've done all of those books through our Living Math book list as well. So definitely look at that.
Yeah, I think elementary math is fun.
Yeah.
It's when you get to the algebra that I got to outsource geometry.
Right.
But also with math, understanding that not everybody adds the same way. In school, the way Common Core, the reason that I really don't like Common Core is that they won't let you do math in your head. If you naturally come up with a number, they're telling you, you need to show us how you work it this way. I don't know if you guys have ever seen this.
Yeah.
So this is a great time to homeschool because maybe Common Core wouldn't be suitable for your child. And so maybe your child is doing great amounts of math in their head and you know they're learning the concepts and you want them to have the freedom to keep moving ahead. Ruby, you said your kids are maybe ahead and giving them that ability to, you know, to do things on their own and encourage that as opposed to that Common Core. There's only one way you can do it if you're in public school. I mean the traditional district school, not public independent study charter schools. You won't be told you have to do Common Core if you're with Granite Mountain or any of these other schools. I just mean your local building.
Right. Did you guys have any more questions? Those of you that are with us on Zoom, I'm looking through the chat to see if one mom is saying she's driving and can't write down all of our resources. I think Paige and I, we can spend some time putting down the curriculum that we talked about in the notes.
Yeah, I'm grabbing all the questions to save them for later.
Oh, you're so good. I love Paige. Someone, Jennifer said, wow, this is such great info. She wasn't aware of this. Thank you for making this sound so doable and easy. It is very doable and easy. You just have to relax and kind of let go of some of those expectations like Paige and Laurel have been telling us. Oh, you will file your PSA through the California Department of Education website. You can actually just Google search file PSA CDE and the link pops up. I think another really good thing to know is that all of our homeschool associations have pages on their websites that have step-by-step directions. So if you're feeling a little apprehensive about how to fill it out, you can go to CHN, HSC, CHIA, HSLDA. All of them have step-by-step directions. I think most of us would agree that you should join a number of these associations if you're filing a PSA, just to have the connection with that association and help if you need it. We talked about the graduation thing, right?
Mm-hmm. Wendy.
Yeah.
You should plug your other Zoom meetings that people can go back and watch. There was one that we did about community building that had a lot about that too.
Yeah, that's true. Thank you, Laurel. So we've done, I think we're on number 6 of these panel discussions. We've done one every Saturday for the last like 6 or 7 weeks. I think we took 4th of July off. So we've done different topics. We've done PSPs. We had some leaders of some local PSPs on, so you could watch that if you want to know more about PSPs. We've done community building, how to build community. We've done how to file a PSA. That was included in our one about the Homeschool Association. So we had a leader from each one of those 4 join us, and they discussed their association and the services that they provide. So you can find those on Homeschool Concierge's website or on Homeschool Concierge's Facebook page. Great idea.
Wendy,
the other important thing I think,
quick.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh,
What?
sure. I was just going to say from earlier, I wanted to suggest to Ruby some fun apps. I've heard about Homer is one, like a learn to read app. Prodigy Math, which you can play on the computer, and I think there's an app for it too. But I also love the Dragon Box math apps. There's a whole series of them for little kids on up to 12 plus. They teach algebra concepts and numbers, and so those are some that I can think of that I know that my kids have loved. I just wanted to throw that out there. I'm sure there's a ton more.
Thanks so much. I wrote them all down. Thank you.
Oh, good.
Laurel, I wanted to ask you, did you have a deschooling book or resource that we can recommend that you prefer?
No, just there's so much online that if you just look up the word deschooling,
Right.
lots of community leaders and veteran homeschoolers will offer you a lot of words about this that basically come down to relax and find your family's groove instead of trying to recreate school at home.
Yes.
I think CHN member Tammy Takahashi did she write a book? I think it's on Amazon.
Gently, maybe, was that it?
I think so. Let me see if I can find it.
Yeah. Oh, I think another thing to point out is you're going to let when you know you're not going back to your district school, you're going to let them know, oh, we're not returning. We're going to enroll in another public school, or we're going to enroll in a private school. And then you're going to a little bit later order your records, not if you're filing a PSA, not as mom, but as your new private school administrator or records department. So you're not going to withdraw and ask for the records at the same exact time as mom.
Right.
Gotcha.
Let's see. Oh, how do we have outings and field trips when museums and things are closed because they're not essential businesses? I think we kind of touched on that you're going to want to look for online opportunities to do virtual field trips. I'm finding that a lot of families are now comfortable being outdoors with 6 feet apart. So they're doing some more outdoor activities or meeting up for pod learning. I've heard a lot of people saying that they're planning these pods for learning. So I think just keep an eye on the Facebook groups and see what things people are offering for the fall. Like I'm pretty comfortable being outside. Like I was talking about before we started, we've been going to the beach, my kids and I. We're not plopped down right next to other people, but at least we're getting outside. We've been doing some hikes. We live not too far from, I don't know if you're all aware of this, but if you're in Orange County, we have a redwood forest in Orange County. It's right in the right in the back of Yorba Linda. So we hike over from Wabash Avenue into Carbon Canyon Park, and we run around in the redwoods. And so there's opportunities to be outside and learning and doing things like that. Tide pools are always a great place to go if you want to do some science outdoors. Trying to think, can you guys think of any other? Those are just the things we've done recently since the pandemic. Any other ideas?
Well, Southern California has so many environments near us. You can go to the beach, you can go to the mountains, you can go to the desert, all within, but it's extremely frustrating not being able to go to the museum and the science center. And that's really hard on all of us. Many of us are recreating relaxed homeschooling at home and going, okay, well, we can't do those things that we always did, but we're going to focus on music. We're going to focus on reading. We're going to focus on baking. We're going to make more things. We're going to grow more things. And so I guess my big answer would be just wait for that aspect of our life to come back, because right now we're just having to replace those experiences with other things.
Right. We've also been watching a lot of different movies comparing. We watched Miss America comparing what really happened in history. We watched Hamilton when that came out, comparing Hamilton's real life biographies to how they portrayed it in the play. So doing things like that, it's kind of fun. Someone's asking if any of us have ever used Spectrum books. I'm not familiar with, I've seen them before, but we've never actually personally used them.
The workbook publisher, right?
Yeah.
I don't think I have.
I have.
Yeah.
And I've used them very recently.
Oh.
They're useful for work samples.
Okay.
They're very inexpensive. I know some kids that really like them, and it's a great way to kind of, I don't know, if you plan on putting your child back into public school, to kind of keep them familiar with the way that schools would work and the types of worksheets they would get or the types of reading exercises they might get. I've never completed an entire workbook, but I would pick and choose the things from them, and they cost about $6.95, and you can find them in any bookstore and probably at places like Walmart. I don't know. So they are useful, and it's a great way to kind of touch base and see, hey, is my kid kind of up to par with this third grade math or language arts, or can they read the things in this science workbook or whatever? But yeah, so they can be good and they can be useful, and they could be a base for you to then go and explore the world if you feel like you need something to kind of anchor you. And they're very inexpensive. So I would rather someone buy a few Spectrum workbooks to start out, and then start exploring the world using those as the, an anchor point.
Not only are they inexpensive to get into new, but they are the sort of thing that are always floating around on the free table.
Yes. I just gave some away.
I'm done with these grades, and you just say who wants them. And so, yeah, they're available in the community.
Nice.
I just wanted to recommend, going back to field trips, that anyone who hasn't checked out Google Expeditions, give it a try. Mostly it works by way of just 360 video being available for a lot of different field trips. So it can be fun just to tour the inside of the White House. You're looking at it from a computer, but you can alternatively buy those Google Cardboard viewers, and you can stick your phone in the top. If you guys haven't tried this, it's actually really fun. And then it could be a VR experience of the Smithsonian Museum, for example.
Good.
Great. All right, I think we got all the questions from Facebook. So unless you guys have questions on here.
Wendy, I did wanted to ask you again. You said you go to these little hikes with your kids, and there's like a redwood forest. Where exactly is that?
It's in Carbon Canyon Park.
Okay.
So it's all on the back side. You can actually hike to it from going into the park, or if you park on Wabash Avenue in Yorba Linda and go up by the horse trail, you can go up the back way, and it's kind of got it has a hill, and you go back down the hill. It's just fun. Like there's like wooden, what do you call those, like wooden steps smack in the dirt, and you have to like hike up it. So yeah.
That sounds really fun. My kids,
because I've been spending far too much time sitting on my butt since the pandemic has started, but yeah.
Absolutely. My kids are very active, and they want to be outdoors all day long. So this is something really cool that we'll definitely check out. Thank you for that.
Check it out. It's fun. And look at our other parks. Laura, what was that park we used to meet at? I'm sure the playground is closed, but there's another park in the Tustin Orange area that also has a little running redwood. Do you remember where that was?
I'll think about it.
Okay, we can post it in here.
It's a good time to look into geocaching.
Yes.
Because there might be geocaching sites at these places, and that's how kids can connect virtually now.
Yeah.
Letterboxing too.
Letterboxing. Oh, I always preferred that one.
Yeah.
It felt a little old-fashioned and sweet, didn't it, Laurel?
Yeah.
And I would say also that would be a lot of our science. When my kids were little, we would do nature study. So I'd bring little tiny notebooks for each of them, pencils or watercolors, and we'd go and we explore for a while, and then they could pick something to draw and just observe. And we'd talk about, why do birds have feathers, or, the leaves that have fallen, or, did you observe any animal houses? Or we would read the Burgess animal books and the Burgess bird books. You can find them for free online.
Right. And
they're really sweet stories about Mother Nature teaching, a rabbit about all the different animals in the rodent class. So those are the kinds of things that we would do for science, because gosh, my kids learned so much more from that than they did from any Spectrum workbook, honestly.
And I want to suggest that if you are getting out to a place like a park that's got a resource section, that you check out some of those lesson plans. They might even have something. We used to take classes at the Newport, I forgot what it's called, an estuary, the Back Bay, I think it is. And their whole website was just full of lesson plans that you could print off, and there's your free science.
Yeah.
Junior Rangers. You can look online for Junior Ranger programs if you go to the state park.
Yep. And that could be something, because kids like to accomplish things. You know, they have a little passport book that they get to fulfill.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And if you're with someplace that is going to require samples, those sorts of things make great learning samples.
Yeah.
They do.
Yeah, when we did our road trip, the kids got, and we went to Washington, D.C., they got the park ranger book because they could track everything they were doing with the national parks for all the monuments as well. So it works in the national parks and in the monuments. My children are stirring. What was the other one? Well, Paige, we can wait. Did you copy the chat notes just so I can make sure we put them on the Facebook too?
Yeah, I have the chat notes.
Oh, you're so good. Okay. Oh, here, Bailey wants to show you. Here's the books that she got while we were in Washington, D.C.
Nice.
Great.
And they have all these fun little stickers you can add to them. And then they have the one for the older kids is more like this. So.
And what's nice, if you're worried about meeting standards, all of these, you know, state and federal park sites with information are aligned to the state standards. They have to be. They can't put together information that isn't. So that makes it easy for you if you are looking for a free way to meet the science and history standards.
Right.
Very cool.
And like they have little things like you stamp them when you get there. So when you go there, you talk to the ranger and you stamp them. So they're cute. Lots of free. I mean, I think this book was free, but the other ones we had to pay for. So lots of fun stuff to do.
I would like to follow along with what Wendy was saying. When you are learning in this method of a learning lifestyle, and you're learning through experiencing things like your vacation, like your field trips, it lends itself to photography much better than sitting at your kitchen table and doing a worksheet.
Yeah.
Right? And so I have journaled our experiences by making photo books.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I just wanted a page. I don't know if you can see that, but that was one of the book club days.
I remember seeing this in person. You still have it. It's so sweet.
2010, so that was our first hardbound workbook, but it's full of the documents of our co-op adventures and our trips to museums and our vacations. And these books are called the field trip files. And that's how, and my kids look through them and they remember that field trip, what I learned that day. And I would even like stick little factoids that I thought was really interesting because I make the book. And then they go, oh yeah, there's that. Remember when Griffin was the saber-toothed baby at the National History Museum? So, you know, it reconnects and establishes those memories and the things that they learned. Here's a saber-toothed baby.
Hello, saber-toothed baby. Yeah, I love that you do that, Laurel. I had high expectations of myself to do that. I used to create photo books for every year, and since having my third child, I have not been so good at it. So maybe you'll reignite my love of that. I do love making those photo books.
It's what I do for me to remember our experiences.
Yeah, I love it.
It's much easier to even just do virtual photo albums that you can just, you know, order through Costco and go pick up when you're heading there. So,
well,
and our lives, our experiences on Facebook tend to live there forever. So they're kind of like virtual photo albums. So that's a part of it too, that the way you experience your kids' education changes as they get older. You know, when you have a 10th grader and an 11th grader and a 8th grader, it's going to be much different, but you're going to want to remember those days that you were baking together and hiking together and oh my gosh, the pandemic and what did we do? And remember I learned how to do this and I read this to my sibling. And you know, it's not about the state standards, it's about your life together.
Right. Well, I remember when we used to do more co-ops, I would every night after co-op, I would go onto Facebook. One, because our teacher figured out that I didn't like checklists. They made me crazy. So I would track things and share things on Facebook. And so I would make a little photo album of the kids during co-op, and then I'd write today in co-op, and I'd list everything we did with the links, and I would find that I was encouraging so many other moms to form co-ops and to try the different little things that we were pulling out to do. I think one year we did a whole thing based on stamps, and that was super fun. And so then other moms were encouraged to try new things and follow the links and see what they could find. So I definitely love it when parents share what they're doing, the interesting things, and tracking it. It makes it fun for everyone. Yeah.
And I just, I want to follow up with that and just suggest that as you're figuring out who you are and what you like Wendy's talking about stamps and Laurel's talking about, just having this wonderful lived family experience, all of these things you can express to the charter school teacher and help them get to know you. I think the other thing that is not talked about a lot in terms of charter school is just how important that teacher is. We've talked about it a little bit, but part of that process is being courageous enough to say, this is who I am, this is who my family is, this is who my children are, and this is what we really need in terms of support. Because they're going to tell you the requirements, but you need to have a voice in that relationship as well.
Yes.
And that can make a real huge difference when you're new. Because if you're new to schooling, to homeschooling, part of you may not need to deschool personally, not just for the sake of education and your children, but learning that you don't just have to obey and do everything you're told, which is school just kind of continues this whole idea, and really embrace this freedom of being willing and courageous enough to say, this is how we learn. This is what we do. And it can really help you in that relationship with a charter school teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And if it doesn't help you, then you have the wrong teacher.
Yes.
I was going to ask you guys, another fun thing I've noticed in my neighborhood since COVID started happening is more people building their little free libraries. And that's kind of if you can take a walk, we have a horse trail in our area, and there's a couple of them along the path, and there's a couple in our neighborhood now. So if you want to go and explore the little free libraries in your area, you might be able to find different books and pull them out if you're comfortable doing that. I was looking for if there's a place that you can register them. Yeah, map, here it is.
Nice.
In here for us. I just remembered that. There. Okay. So look up Little Free Library. If you're looking for free books and you want to go out in the world and explore, they're just people build these little boxes with doors on them, and they put in books that they want to get rid of, and other people can take them. You can leave one that you want to get rid of. It's kind of a fun way to get outdoors and find some books. And most libraries are doing curbside pickups now, right? Yeah. All right. Well, we have been talking for 2 hours, you guys. So I don't see any other questions.
I just want to say thank you, ladies, so much. I got some really useful information out of all of this. So thank you for your time and answering all of my questions.
Awesome. Welcome.
Happy to have you.
Happy to help. Thank you for coming.
Of course.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Have a great rest of your weekend.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you.
Take care. Thank you, Wendy, for hosting.
Thanks, Paige.
Bye.
Bye, Paige. Great to see you.
Oh, and thank you, Carolyn.
Yes, for all your wonderful help and wise words.
Yeah, Carrie. I love Carrie. I should have invited you to join us, Carrie. But then you would have had to have your video on. Well, thank you, guys.
Thank you, Wendy. Thank you, Paige.
Thank you,
That was
Laura.
really fun.
Yeah, that was really fun. Good to
See you
talk and see
again.
my friends' faces, too.
Yes. All right. Love you guys.
Bye. You too. Bye.
Bye.